Welcome back to Mom in Mind. I'm your host, Dr. Kat, and we are joined today by Jasmine Yao. She is a stepmom who supports childless stepmoms who are navigating the transition into biological motherhood. She helps them unravel their complex feelings, develop their capacity to create more cohesive family culture amidst the complexities of blended life. And today she shares a bit of her own journey going from a stepmom into her own biological motherhood and some of her own personal complexities along the way. And of course, how she's helping stepmoms now. And I'm really glad to be having Jasmine on because we haven't not yet really talked fully about the stepmom's journey and specifically going from stepmom into biological mom. This path impacts a lot of people. A lot of people deal with this transition. And as I'm a proponent of talking about what people really go through and sharing it here so that somebody out there, and hopefully it's you, can benefit from hearing this, resonate, hear parts of your story in here, and then share it with somebody else who could benefit as well. So let's dive in and meet Jasmine. Welcome, Jasmine. Thank you for being here.
Hi, thank you so much for having me on.
I'm in particular happy to talk with you because we haven't quite touched on this subject yet, which is being a stepmom and then having your own kids. And well, let me rephrase that. Sorry, that's not right. We haven't quite touched on being a stepmom and then having your own biological child and what that process is like, and certainly how it can impact you and all that. So, thank you so much for wanting to come on and talk about this.
My pleasure.
Yeah, I welcome you to start wherever you'd like with your story and your journey.
I have been a stepmom. This is my 10th year. And if you're a stepmom, you'll know about the emotional complexity, especially at the start, finding your place in the family, trying to form bonds with your stepchildren. And we were navigating that for 3 or 4 years. I had developed quite a strong bond with my stepson. He's now 14. He
Oh,
was
sorry,
around.
sorry, sorry. Just one second. My computer just popped up wanting to renew my
Okay.
security stuff. Oh, okay. You can
So,
see me. Okay, okay. Go ahead.
yeah. So what happens is you'll go back and cut it. Is that what you do? Or it will just keep
Yeah,
running?
the editors will take
Yeah.
it away.
Okay. Yeah.
Yep.
Cool. Yep. So I'll keep going. So my stepson was around 7 or 8. Things felt pretty stable, and we were all really excited to add another child to our family. When I did the my first pregnancy test and it was positive, I ran out of the bathroom and my stepson was playing video games with his friend. He saw it. We were so excited. Everyone was so excited. So I did not expect the emotional struggle inside me that followed. And I started to worry about how things would change. Would I be able to maintain my relationship with him when I get so caught up in biological motherhood and I have this overwhelming love for my child as they describe in books, and I was so worried what would happen to our family. Would my stepson feel left out? And so these differences, which I'd never thought of before, even as stepmom,
Mhm.
started to come to the fore, and I wasn't seeing anyone else talk about it. Yeah, so I started to realize and process some of these things. And things still overall went quite smoothly with
Mhm.
my stepson. We can get into it more. There's this change that happens, which is very common with old moms, where you start to find older kids annoying. And when you
Uh-huh.
you know,
Uh-huh. Yep.
so actually I was doing a lot of Googling at that point because suddenly I was like, I just find him so annoying. Why can't he be more independent? It's like
Mhm.
that all really surprised me. And I don't know what was going on. So I did find some stories, not of stepmoms, but just moms having their second or third child or whatever and finding this tension going on. And so that comforted me.
Mhm.
And after a while it subsided. We got into a rhythm. So 2 years after my biological son, things were going on. We decided to add another baby.
Mhm.
And this time things were not so smooth at all because suddenly my stepson was having his own crisis, his own struggles. And we won't go into too much detail about what the blended family struggle was, but he started he started showing aggression, anger in a home.
Mm.
And then,
That was out of
uh,
character.
yeah, it was out of character. My daughter was 3 months old. Big crisis happened. A custody battle began.
Hmm.
He was at our home, and I struggled so much because I was so resentful. I'm like, this is my time to focus on my baby. I don't want
Yeah.
drama. So, going through all those struggles, we sought help from many people.
Mhm.
I went to work with Alita Blanchard, who is a parenting coach, I think now qualified as a holistic counselor. And she used material from the Jai Institute of Parenting. There's a big module in there on anger and aggression. And she talks a lot on her socials on how to handle an aggressive child and what it really is all about. So I did all that. We got help from mediators, lawyers, different coaches. And then I discovered the blended family literature. And there is a free site online, sfhelp.org. It's by the late blended family expert therapist Peter Gerlach. So he's got a lot of information on his site. And then it just hit me like a ton of bricks what I found there about
Mm.
how when you're adding a child into a blended family, you're actually adding it into a blended ecosystem, like the
Mm.
whole ecosystem you have to consider. And no one had ever said that to me before.
Yeah.
And so from there, I started developing my work. I started putting together, I've got a PDF about what you need to consider when you're thinking about is it the right time to add a new child.
Mm.
So yeah, it's through that journey, working out these struggles, I found language to articulate what I had been going through and struggling with, and also identifying the kinds of supports, the kinds of emotional intelligence or skills that are helpful to develop in navigating this parenting journey that doesn't end.
It does not.
Yeah,
So these are multiple kind of steep learning curves for you, anyhow.
it was.
First stepmom, then biological, then second, and then
Yeah,
in there, some very, it sounds like very intense stuff happening with your
yeah,
stepson or for him while you're trying to figure out how to be a mom to three
yep,
at the same time, like that, as if there weren't enough going on already. That's a lot to navigate.
it is.
A lot. So with the literature you found on blended families, I mean, it sounded like it was pretty validating. Meaning like you, it sounds like you saw parts of your experience in what you were reading through.
Absolutely, absolutely. And it's got a lot of very helpful things identifying all the extra layers of things blended families have to go through, the steps such as grieving, finding your new place, all that kind of stuff. Both children and adults have to go through in a blended family. And it talks about the kinds of communication and communication skills that are helpful to work through. For example, one particular dynamic, the insider outsider dynamic, is something that both the stepchild and the stepmom goes through. And especially when you're bringing a new baby, a childless stepmom who was previously more on the outer in a sense. Now, when you add a new child, you are suddenly both on the inside and the outside at the same time.
Oh,
Because you've created this dynamic now where you and your partner and your new baby is like that new unit. And then the
right.
stepchildren are on the outer of that unit. So there's a
Oh,
complex,
interesting.
yeah, a complex both inner and outer thing going on.
I guess I'm there must be so many ways that can manifest, but in particular, if there's shared custody or shared parenting, then the like I assume in your scenario anyways, your stepson maybe wasn't always at home with the three of you,
Yep.
um, or the four of you at a certain point. So like he was missing out on some of that stuff, and you were missing out on some of him and what his
Yes.
experience was.
Yes, this is quite tricky for many families. Right now, we have transitioned to near full-time care, so that sort of dynamic is less obvious. But when we were 50-50, and this is the thing, so many step families try to figure out, like, oh, can we go on a holiday when the stepchildren are not here? What about photo shoots? Who's in the photo shoot? Like all sorts of things like that. And especially when you bring in your baby, this is where stepmoms struggle, because we all have this yearning, right? We want to celebrate our journey and our family and feel like we deserve the special firsts and our baby deserves the special first. And so for some stepmoms, depending on where their relationship is with their stepchildren, families really come in all shapes and sizes, and some people have closer bonds than others through
Right.
no fault of anyone. It becomes this, for stepmoms, childless stepmoms especially, now having their own children, it's, oh, I feel resentful that so much of our energy goes into catering for the blended family dynamic. And when is it my turn or our
Mm.
turn to celebrate our journey? So it becomes this complex thing that everyone's trying to figure out then for themselves.
Right. Just from the psychological perspective, my brain started going to all of the ways that this could contribute to depression, anxiety, you name it, like whatever, overwhelm for
Mhm.
sure, high stress, yes, but
Yes.
like if you don't have support or even maybe feel, it sounds like potentially lost in the mix, how stressful, how potentially depressing that could be.
Yes, there's research by Dr. Lisa Happy Steps, her work is called, that the rates of depression among stepmoms are higher.
Mm,
Yeah.
wow. For all of those reasons and more, I'm sure.
Yeah, I don't think her work specifically focused on this since kind of postpartum kind of phase. I haven't really found anything, but just in general, yeah.
Yeah. Do you know if that for you, for your journey into this, if any of that showed up, like feelings of depression,
Um,
feelings of anxiety?
so this is funny because I, before becoming a stepmom, I was on antidepressants and stabilizers for 7 years, so I'm very familiar
Mm.
with depression. I actually have a book written about my journey. So it was always, when people had told me, because this is in your background, when you become a mom, your risk for having depression is really high, for postpartum depression, postpartum anxiety. I didn't, it didn't really get so serious that I identified as such, but I did hit a point maybe 3 or 4 months after my first birth that I think I was beginning to experience postpartum anxiety for about maybe 2 or 3 weeks, and it wasn't blended family related. It was just new mother. I was really anxious about,
Sure.
oh, how do I care for my new baby? And
Yep. Yep.
yeah, so I did have that for a little bit, and that's when my husband insisted, like, we gotta give you some days off and let's send our baby to care. And so we did that 1 or 2 days a week, and kind of I just went back into balance
Oh,
after.
that's good. That's good you caught
Yeah.
it early. Um,
Yeah.
that's really helpful and important for sure. Yeah, there's so many things going on and so much what I would consider like vulnerabilities,
Yeah.
exhaustion and all this change and figuring out how to take care of a baby and all that. Yeah, it's ripe for potentially anxiety
It
or
is.
depression.
It absolutely is. Yes.
So great, because things were already so complex.
Yes.
I'm glad you had that support. I'm glad your husband was had
Yeah.
his antenna pick that up.
Yes, I think it really helped that in our family we we had a strong bond. It was pretty stable. My relationship with my husband was quite strong, and certainly, but these are all elements that create incredible stress for
Right.
stepmoms in other settings where there's relationship stress, it becomes extremely difficult.
Yes, for sure. Oh, with the partner. And I've heard stories from some moms about the complexity of just dealing with the other family, the
Yeah.
parent and or family of the child that they're parenting. That could go easily and it could very well not.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah,
Um,
totally. I just want to put in actually here a lovely little story about our blended family dynamics. You don't get just the challenging picture. So when my daughter was born, my stepson's mom bought a teddy bear, and there was this lovely gesture. So we had this beautiful dynamic where we were celebrating each family's new additions, new children, and being quite considerate and thoughtful around each family's needs during this intense time of welcoming new babies. And so just wanted to put that in for blended families that this is possible and so helpful, yeah, when people are navigating the stress of a new baby.
oh, for sure. Yeah, again, I'm thinking of all the ways that's helpful, but it's also supportive to, in this situation, your stepson to know that there's
Yes,
like support so he doesn't
absolutely.
have to like feel awkward or weird or not talk about the new baby or that kind of
Yeah,
stuff.
yes, which it's absolutely a challenge in some homes where because the parent is struggling with secure insecurity is saying to the children, that baby is not your sibling, or you're not allowed to share about your baby here, and these sorts of things. I really encourage step parents and parents in blended families to work through these sorts of, yeah, feelings.
Right, because everybody suffers when it's
It's not,
legend and
yeah.
feeling unsupportive. So going back a little bit, thinking of kind of two things simultaneously. One, how you figured out how to be a stepmom and the mom to your biological child. I guess we'll start with that first, and then I'd like to understand how you help other people do that as well.
Right. Actually, sorry, I just zoned out a bit there. So I'm talking about my first, like
Oh, I,
renegotiating that role, and then how I help other stepmoms fight. Right.
yeah.
Okay. Okay. Because there's kind of two layers. There's one layer that is just me as a woman transitioning into that intense care phase that
Yeah,
is
we
not
can.
stepmom. Yeah.
Okay, we can. I'll separate the questions out.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So we'll just
Sorry.
okay. Restarting with the first. Okay, I'm coming back in.
Mm.
So going back to that time where you were figuring out how to be a stepmom and how to be a mom to your first biological one.
Yeah.
How did you figure that out? What kind of resources?
Yeah. So actually, I'll share more of my struggles here too, because then people resonate and feel less alone. So that was a phase where before that I was in full-time work, and my husband was doing my stepson's school pickups. But after my son, he had found this work that was more demanding, and I transitioned into more of a caretaker role for my stepson in
Mm.
ways that I wasn't involved in before because I was at work.
Oh,
So, yeah, it was a period of adjustment, but it happened quite smoothly for us. One of the biggest stresses, which I know a lot of moms face, is the car rides, right? The car rides with a new baby and trying to figure out how that works with the schedule. So initially, we hired some help, like a nanny, for the first few weeks, but she found something else and that didn't work out. So then after my first month or first 2 months postpartum, I was feeling better, more able to care for my baby. Like initially it was like, oh, I don't even know how to go for a car ride because you've got this car seat and how does it all work? So it was like pretty overwhelming, pretty big step to just be like,
right.
okay, I can drive my baby around.
Yeah.
But yeah, once I gained more confidence then it wasn't, it was still a learning curve, but it became not too hard to do the school runs, and then with my baby go to playgrounds, do the school homework. So that was like a new role I took
Mhm.
on. What was harder, I think, was this feeling like my new baby is so fragile and so precious, and he was like an active 7 8 year old, and I was like anxious, don't do anything that hurts the baby, or like he would want to play with me, and I'm like, oh, I don't want to take my eyes off my baby. And like, it sounds like this is probably very common for like moms having their second child as well, like learning to balance too. Oh, and I remember now feeling at that time like I wasn't sure if I was going from 0 to 1 or 1 to 2. It was like it felt like I was doing both.
For
Yeah.
sure, that makes a ton
Yeah.
of sense.
Yeah. And then yeah, I think in my exhaustion, there were times where I was always looking forward to the week off, because
Mm.
then there was less demand on me in terms of parenting and less boisterous energy to manage. So yeah, and then I had a lot of anxiety. Like I didn't even know that, but I had a lot of anxiety as a person and therefore as a mother, which later in, yeah, when I went to work with a leader, that I started to unfold and resolve a bit more. But that anxiety was driving me, and so it was like all the time I just wanted to minimize stresses or unpredictability in our lives. And
Yeah, for sure.
yeah, and so there was this anxiety that was making me irritable when my stepson wasn't doing things exactly like I wanted him to. And
Mhm.
yeah, so it was quite, I was quite a highly strung kind of new mom, and it's a learning journey, and I'm not as highly strung anymore, but yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, but no, that is very relatable for sure. There's so many different transitions happening at the same
Yeah.
time. Just in that what you were talking about, like you going from work to home, going
Yeah.
from going into being primary caregiver for your stepson and now primary caregiver for your biological child. That's a lot of moving parts
Yeah.
all at the same time. So of course that's going to be stressful and anxiety producing. It's a
Mm,
lot. It's a lot.
mm,
Yeah, thank you for sharing that because I think there are a lot of moms again like I haven't covered necessarily this transition here before,
mhm.
but it is a
Mhm.
lot of people's
Oh, I
experience.
just want to add one more thing. So I think it would have really helped me if I knew that this was normal, like the tension, the inner tension
Yeah.
was normal. But because I didn't, and then for many stepmoms, we have this stress that, oh, if we're having negative feelings about our stepchildren, then, it's, my step family is going to crumble, my husband's
Mhm.
going to get upset, like this stress that so this is what clients say to me so often. Am I a bad person? Am I a bad person? And it's so helpful to normalize the feelings, because you don't add on guilt and shame on top of the anxiety that just makes everything worse.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Speaking of your clients, the work that you do is to support now, as you said, childless stepmoms going
Mhm.
into having biological children and managing that transition.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
feels like it fills a big gap in terms of the needs that the parents have. Not a, I don't know how many people provide that specific type of support, but I
Mhm.
know that it's needed.
Yeah. Some of my clients have come to me after going to therapy and feeling like they weren't really understood there. There's a wide range of kind of support out there. I actually had a chat with Dr. Helena Vessing. She's a professor at, I think, the California Institute of Integral Studies. She
Yes.
focuses on motherhood, matrescence, this sort of transition. And yeah, she has had quite a few stepmoms come to her with this sort of angst. I think it just depends if you find a psychologist, therapist, support person who can hold space
Right.
for your tension. And it just comes down to the individual as well, whether you resonate with them. Yeah, but in my work, Stepmoms come to me at different phases. Sometimes the children are 1 year, 2 years, and they've kind of been struggling for a while,
Mhm.
but not sought help until they've read my material, my social media, and felt like, oh, maybe Jasmine can really understand and help me unfold this. Whereas a lot of people feel like I'm just so alone and nobody understands me, and I'm not going to go get help because they won't understand me. And yes, I think it's really helpful that I'm identifying a specific stepmom struggle and putting it out there.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. There's a lot of different ways that going into this motherhood journey can feel lonely and confusing for sure. And getting as specific as possible in the type of support that you offer, like you're doing, helps people to find you.
Yeah,
Sometimes
yeah,
people don't even know exactly what they're looking for. They just know they need help.
yeah, totally, totally.
Yeah.
And yes, they don't know what is possible because when you're struggling and you're feeling depressed, in forums, sometimes stepmoms express that maybe my only path is to separate.
Mhm.
And I would like to share with more stepmoms that it's there's no magic pill, but if you find the right support and identify the right things to change or work on, the picture, your family picture can be a lot brighter than what you can possibly see in the thick of struggle.
Oh, yeah, the support can make all the difference. Like you just to try and make a sense of what you're experiencing for one.
Yeah,
Um,
totally.
it can be really confusing, especially like you're describing in your story, and I'm sure a lot of other stepmom stories. There's so many different things happening at once and layers of
Yeah,
complexity. Sometimes we just need somebody else to help us untangle it,
yeah,
to make sense of it.
yeah, just holding space for it. I think it would be really helpful if society, if our friends and our family can be open to understand and hold space for this complex thing that is going on inside stepmoms. And this is an element I encourage all my clients to think about and do is how can you build your support circle, your community, and this takes some vulnerability and risk
Mhm.
to share what's really going on in you as a stepmom. And it's quite risky because not everyone will understand at
Mhm.
all. But if both stepmoms can be more open to taking this risk of sharing and other people become more aware of the complexity of this struggle, then I think stepmoms have a better chance of having this support village that is more conducive to everyone's health.
For sure. Because as you were saying before, it's an ecosystem.
Yeah.
It's then there are a lot of people's needs involved. So definitely, the more support, the better. Are you finding that a lot of moms who find you are relieved to find you?
They are. Yeah.
Right.
Sometimes, yeah, the anxieties are really deep. And when you have that sort of anxiety, it's to start to talk about it, the vulnerability. It like feels like you're about to die. This is like such a big step.
Yes.
Yeah, so I provide that kind of space, and over time, they become more comfortable with their inner world and sharing what it's really like.
It's so necessary to have that connection for healing. So in your work with moms, what's an example or a couple of examples of the things that you help people figure out?
Oh, sorry, that was a different question to what I was expecting.
Oh, okay, I'll reframe it.
Um,
I can reframe.
I reframe it as like maybe,
I can just ask you how you help people or
yeah,
prepare.
okay, okay. Yeah, I was more thinking like it's what are some things stepmoms or families can do to prepare for like nurturing an
Okay.
hour's baby.
Okay.
Anyway,
Okay,
yeah.
sure. No problem. Okay. Coming back in. I'll just be a little more broad, and then you can answer however. Yeah. What are some of the things that you help parents do to prepare?
Yeah, I think it starts with awareness of the complexity that you are going to run into as you have a new child and raise this child. And I was so unaware, even though I was already quite an aware person, and we were already having this strong blended family foundation. So I would say if you're considering adding an house baby, it's really important to look at your partnership, the strength of that partnership. And this inevitably involves looking into your childhood and the relational patterns that shaped you there. These are the relational dynamics and skills that if a couple is aware of, they have a higher chance of navigating the bumps in the journey more collaboratively and smoothly. And that really is the core, the secret to navigating the variety of challenges that will pop up in a blended family journey. I would also say be aware of how in a blended family, like time, energy, and money, they can easily become contentious issues.
Yeah.
So think about that, discuss it with your partner before, yeah, before having more children. And it's this ongoing, intentional look and discussion around all these factors surrounding your family. If you can have those discussions non-defensively, that really sets you up. The other thing is look at the strengths of your relationship with your stepchildren, whether they come from a home with very different values, and if so, how are you going to navigate that, especially if the children are younger, your stepchildren are younger, when they're all in your home? Like, what is the plan for you and your partner to navigate that? What are your family values? How are you, as a new establishing blended family, how are you going to cultivate a sense of togetherness, of family cohesiveness, and what are your possibly different ideas around that, you and your partner? All these things really come into play. And beyond the baby stage, it's like sometimes when we become new moms, we're just so focused on the baby stage, but it's always good to think about values over the longer term and start learning about, yeah, parenting styles. And I think if stepmoms can approach the journey with curiosity as this ongoing adventure in which you and your partner are at the helm of your family, and feeling, I want stepmoms to know that challenges, the complexity of feeling is often quite common, quite normal, and there is a way to walk through that.
Yeah, that's great. That's beautiful. And I think there are some ways in which you're describing this intentional process. Wow, is so protective of mental health, but also it could be extrapolated to other people entering into the parenting journey. Many other ways. I'm thinking of adoption. I'm thinking there just there are lessons in what you just described that can be extrapolated and used in other areas of and other ways that people become parents too. It's a good there's a lot of good intentionality in there. Jasmine, this has been such a great conversation. I appreciate you sharing your story and how you're supporting other stepmoms. Thank you so much. Please find Jasmine by going to linktree/stepmomcoach. And you can also find her on Instagram at Jasmine Yao. She has a lot of great resources on that Linktree link. And most definitely share this with somebody you know who could be going through something similar so that they can feel heard and reflected in these stories as well. Thank you so much for being here. Until next time.